Halloween approaches rapidly, and Top Tech has requested the return of Scary Turfey. Turfey rolls now, and tires seem to be holding air, which is great, but I like to light up the headlights, and that's just a lot easier to do if there's some wiring in there. Now, 4 or 5 years ago when I started this project, for some harebrained reason, I decided to rip out the entire wiring harness and redo it.
Palm trees, broken roads, desert dust bowl sun, where the bill man will call you almost every week. Which bills to pay today, what's left in the fridge to eat, where stars frame the night.
I have the drive belt, which I cut off for some reason. Partially seized, I don't know. Choke, throttle, cable, I guess. Ammeter, which looks okay. I don't know what this collar's from. Whole bunch of hardware from the hood. Headlight harness. Sure. The key, which is super rusty, and I don't know. There's a keychain on it that I cannot read anymore, and it's all dried up. Gross. Nice enough to myself to label things, mostly. Starter solenoid, lights. Some of them have ripped off. Ground. So I don't know where they go necessarily, like this black wire with a broken off terminal. I don't know where that goes. And this key switch looks absolutely horrible. Is there any possible way there's any sort of life to this key switch? I can't imagine there is. That's if it even turns. It won't even turn. So I think first thing we need to do is get a new key switch and build the wiring from there. Why do I do this to myself? All right. Got a key switch today. So that's kind of where we're going to build everything from. And the other nice thing was I remembered that I have manuals for this thing, so I have a nice wiring diagram there that kind of shows the physical location of things. And I also have, I'm just going to pull it out of here. Hopefully that furnace isn't too loud. It's getting to be that time of year again. Got this manual, which also has I have a diagram for the 485, which shows the colors of the wiring. This other one does too, but in a way that, like, there's a color code chart here that's a little bit awkward to use, so we're just gonna not use that. But what that means is we can build a harness, and really this I only kind of need for lengths, I guess, of wire, or I can build it in place on the tractor, which is probably going to do a nicer job, but probably take a little longer. I just don't have a lot of time on my hands, so I'll probably just build it here. Yep. So 3 is
battery,
2 is
ignition,
and 1 is going to go to the starter solenoid. wire that goes to our starter solenoid is red. And it does pass through a couple of switches, our clutch switch and a blade switch. I'm probably going to install like a pedal switch. I'm not going to worry about a blade switch because we don't have a blade. Scrummaged up bits of wire in the last 4 or 5 years that I wasn't actually working on this thing, so that's what this mess is. This thing's an absolute mess, but oh, there's a key switch. Might work if this key wasn't so rusty. Feels pretty decent. Oh well. What did we say? Number 1, starter solenoid. It doesn't work. Now we'll bypass it for now, I guess. And then from there, it goes to the blade switch, which we're going to ignore. And then from the blade switch to the starter solenoid. Brake switch. Good. And then that end is going to go to our solenoid. And there's our solenoid. That terminal's too small. That one will work. We'll have to find a nut for that, I guess. It might be a good idea to see if the solenoid works. Seems maybe it doesn't. This might not be a reliable source of 12 volts though either. We can it doesn't seem favorable, does it? My apologies if the sound thus far has been bad. I just realized my mic wasn't connected, so got the solenoid off of here. I don't know, it's riveted together, you know, it's not real pretty. I don't know if we can save it or not. I don't really want to have to buy another solenoid. I don't have to, but I might have to. Gosh, do. We should have a degree of continuity between the starting stud and the ground so that we can, you know, ground the coil out, and it doesn't seem like we do. Kind of want to take it apart. apart? Probably. Let's see if we regret this. There's our magnet, spring. There's our coil. Doesn't look too bad yet. So you can see in there, there's a little, okay, shock absorber spring on there. Our little metal plug, the magnet, when it pulls, it just pulls that down onto the contacts, and the big spring, of course, holds it off the contacts the rest of the time. So basically, when we energize the electromagnet, pulls it down, makes contact. That's it. And we, put power to our starter. Not that it had great chances of grounding anyway, because everything's so rusty. But I think with a cleanup, and we'll clean up inside here, this actually is going to work for us. So we got to clean up the bracket, clean up the studs, and clean up everything that's in here. And we'll just give it a whole rebuild, basically. And it should be good for... Oh, that's tight. Should be good for service for a while. Okay. I have to actually leave for work shortly, but that's good. I'm going to bag this guy up, and I'm going to take it with me to work, where I have a multitude of air tools and tap and die sets and things of that nature at my disposal. And I should be able to get this thing cleaned up really nicely on my lunch break. Well, that cleaned up really nicely. I did have a bit of trouble with this stud. It was bent. I couldn't get the nut off. And when I tried, then it ended up, actually it broke the housing. So I was able to take a bolt, and I don't have it to show you, but basically the head of the stud inside, it's brass, is like a rectangle shape. So I sort of cut the sides off of a regular fine thread 5/16 bolt so that it was a rectangle, and put it in here and glued a washer on top, glued the housing back together, and then there's not a lot of load under here, like it'll be fine. And other than that, just cleaned it up and tested it with one of my Milwaukee batteries for a 12-volt source, and it goes click, click, click. And then we have continuity across, so just a little cleanup and clean the underside so it'll make a nice ground to the chassis, and that's it. The positive, I guess the power cable down to the starter is in really good condition. The cable to the battery, less so. It's a bit, it's okay, but it's not great. It's starting to fray a bit in the corners there. So I will probably, in that hole, there's just not much meat on there. I'll probably try and replace it if I can find some cable around. And then that side, at least, we have our power from the key switch, the brake switch, to the starter solenoid, and then from the battery to the starter itself. So that's a pretty good start. And then from there, we just have to run our wire for everything else. We got power to the condenser, and then kind of our, I guess you could call it accessory power, but it's not really accessory. It's just all the key on stuff. So it's coming along. There's progress. It's slow, but it's steady. So we'll just keep going. Well, it's it's 4 a.m. Thought I'd give you guys a quick little update on Wild Turfey. So been wiring away. We've got our freshly fixed up solenoid installed here. Fuse here runs from the ammeter. This end's going to go to battery positive, so I can run it off of the solenoid post if I like, because this is going to go to actually off of this side. This is going to have the positive battery cable vacuumed out there. The battery tray's a little rough. I'll have to figure out a hold down, but whatever. And then you can see we've got our ignition switch installed. We've got a green wire that's going to go to lighting, yellow wire to the condenser. This red wire is going to go down to the clutch switch, and then this is going to come back up to our starter solenoid over there. We've got the white wire coming off of the magneto. That's going to come up to our headlight switch. There'll be a blue wire coming off the headlight switch running along here with the green wire up to the lights there. And then we have also this red wire here, which is coming off from the magneto, and that's going to go up there to the ammeter on that side, which also runs to the ignition switch. So that's kind of where all that's at. Once everything's kind of squared away a little better, I'll add some loom and some, tie down points and whatever. Had to take the steering wheel off because I had to drill out the hole here, about 3/4 inch to accept the key switch. I wasn't able to use the nice finished nut there. It just didn't work out. So anyway, we've got the hex nut there. Ammeter's installed. I redid the lettering on the headlight switch there. It's popped in. On this side, this is like a indicator lamp for if you're, I don't know if it's for if your brake is applied or your brake isn't applied on the, the starter side. So I think it's actually just like basically a park brake indicator. I'm probably not going to use it. I'll just probably blank that off and carry on from there. So at any rate, things are slowly coming along. I do have to reinstall the throttle cable from there down to the carburetor, which has been all taped off for many years. I probably have to go through it and give it a cleaning, but we'll get it cranking over first and see if we have spark, and then we'll move on from there. This did run once upon a time, and then for reasons that I will never understand and certainly don't remember, I pulled the wiring harness out. Well, for the first time in my care, Turfey has a battery in him. It's wired up. The wire down to the condenser, for ignition power, is not connected, so it's not gonna try and start or anything. It won't have spark. I did bypass the brake switch, which is there, so I've just put a bypass in it. Yeah, I think at this point we can, you know what, let's just give it a crank test. Wow. Haha, awesome. It's never done that in my care. I did have it running once, but it was off of, booster cables and stuff. So I'm going to run the headlights in series rather than parallel, so they're not so bright, because it's Halloween today, and I got to get Turfey out on the yard. I did promise Top Tech that I would do that, so and then you'll see why all of that trouble after. Okay. Whoop. Headlight test. Woohoo! I think I might do well to disconnect the starter though, since this is going to be sitting on the front yard tonight.
November the 7th, and it's our first kind of significant snowfall. It may or may not stick around, but we're getting pretty close to snow shark season. First, a couple other things to take care of. So the first thing I need to get to, and I'm a little overdue in getting to it, honestly, but hey, October 5th was Get Out and Drive Day. You know who wasn't getting out and driving on October 5th? Canada Post. So this didn't show up until the 21st, and now it's November 7th. I'm finally getting around to opening it, and there's snow on my glasses. Tis the season. Anyhow, let's see what they've sent us. And if you haven't gone and checked out the Get Out and Drive podcast, you really need to do that. You can find them also on all over social media. GetOutandDrive.com. They're on YouTube. Check out my buddy Custom Car Nerd on Instagram. He's great. He sent these to me, so thank you very much. Sent some nice little cards here. And that's the QR code, so you can use that and send a bunch of sweet stickers. Cool. Yeah, get the finger out of the way. Cool. And cool. So those need to find homes on toolboxes and cars and beer fridges around here. So that's awesome. Thank you very much for that. Get Out and Drive podcast. Check them out. Now, to the business at hand. There's just one more thing to prove out on Turfey for the end of this video, and before we press pause on this little project until probably late winter, early spring. And well, let's give it some Dr. Pepper and see what happens. I did clean the carb 5 years ago and, you know, kind of wrapped it, covered it with a bag, so should be okay, but I don't know. All right. Oh, gotta close that. It'll work better. Here goes kind of nothing. Literally nothing. Fuse had popped. Weird. Okay. Trying again. Don't tell me that popped the fuse again. some kind of problem there. It wasn't doing that before. Okay, that's very strange. Well, the only thing I've done differently since before was I hooked up the condenser wire. So something's going wrong there. Maybe we've got a shorted out condenser or something, but I guess we're gonna have to wait until later to hear this thing run, because I gotta go pick up Top Tech from daycare. So thanks for watching, and until next time, as always, keep it in the litter box. Cheers.